It's Workers' Day today. May Day celebration characterizes the struggles of workers around the world. And on this day, special attention is paid to the plight and welfare of workers.
As the world commemorates 2019 Workers' Day, Nigerian workers are showering encomiums on President Muhammadu Buhari for the signing of the minimum wage bill into law. The Nigerian Labour Congress is also using the opportunity to call on the federal and state governments to provide amenities that would make life better for citizens as they ensure the implementation of the 30,000 naira minimum wage. Well, joining me to discuss this is a development consultant, Vivian Ani. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Happy Workers' Day.
Yes, happy Workers' Day.
Now, one aspect that many Nigerians are talking about is the implementation of the 30,000 naira minimum wage, and the president have been commended for, implementing that. But then, does that really take care of the welfare of an average Nigerian worker?
No, it does. It does not. Sorry, I meant to say no, it does not. Even for current times, if you do the numbers and you look at the cost of food in the market as it is today, not to talk of when you factor in inflation. Okay, fine, we're looking at it that it's minimum wage, so that some, people who are taking minimum wage ought to be at a certain level of their lives. But the truth is, especially in the public sector, when you get hired at minimum wage, it's not as if you're going to be moving every 6 months. Definitely not. It's not the private sector. So you're going to stay on that minimum wage for quite a while, and some people stay there for 5, 6 years. And what now happens is that even today, 30,000 naira cannot do much. And if you factor in inflation, which is about 11.6% per year, effectively what that means that if you have 100 naira now, by the time 1 year has gone, these are rough and fast figures, by the time 1 year has passed, effectively it's 100 naira less 11.6% or thereabout, depending on the inflation rate.
With the current realities, like you have said, what can employers then do, because their hands seem to be tied, because they are saddled with that responsibility of ensuring that the welfare of workers are really taken care of? Okay,
fine. Now let me say this. What we're witnessing all over the world, not just in Nigeria, is the death of paid guaranteed employment, the death of it. And let me explain. Some many years ago, maybe 2-3 decades ago, up to around the time that our parents entered the workforce, it was expected that you get into a company as a very young person, fresh from school, and you stay there until you retire. And companies too, you were expected to stay, very low mobility of very little movement when it comes to changing jobs. And the companies themselves used to last for a very long time. If you ask yourself today, where's BlackBerry? BlackBerry is gone.
Yes.
That's internationally. And once upon a time, BlackBerry looked as if nothing could shake them.
Yes.
But today they're gone. If you look within Nigeria, a lot of industries that we knew as kids, a lot of companies we knew as kids are gone.
Yes.
In fact, entire industries have disappeared. So if a company cannot guarantee its own its own stay in the marketplace or in the industry, how do they guarantee you, the worker, guaranteed life employment? Is impossible. So like I said, what we're witnessing in Nigeria around the world is the death of guaranteed paid employment.
So is this what has caused the casualization of workers to thrive?
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely. Because think of it this way. Companies are operating in an environment where the rate of change outside, which they cannot control, is so radically different from their ability to adapt. Right now, what we're seeing is that if a company cannot adapt to changing times, and which is difficult, because when you set up a company, you buy equipment for a certain type of technology, you hire people for a certain kind of business model, and then all of a sudden something gets invented outside by somebody which you have absolutely no control, or there's a change in government policy, and that your business model, way of making money, is thrown right through the window. And so how quickly you're able to go back to the drawing board and be able to re-equip literally change your equipment overnight to keep up with changing technology, and also make you either change your staff or make them relearn, is now what is going to guarantee whether you stay or not. So it is difficult. And that is why you're seeing casualization. How do I hire somebody? And at the end of every month, okay, I must pay the person. And the truth is, I don't know whether the marketplace is going to reward my efforts.
Despite all of these issues that you have raised or concerns, the welfare of workers are important to any organization. Something has to be done.
I absolutely agree. But then again, I tell anybody now who's in paid employment, you are the CEO of your career. And what I mean is this. You must be aware that technology is going to make a lot of industries irrelevant. It's going to change a lot of business models. Government policy itself, look at what we're seeing. Big countries who used to endorse open trade policies before are literally shutting their doors and saying, look, we don't want trade from outside because we feel it's threatening our own
So
staff.
workers now have to, change
manage
their
career.
mindset.
Precisely.
And all right.
Precisely.
Thank you, Vivian Annie, for your time on TVC
Thank
Breakfast.
you so much.
Of workers around the world. And on this day, special attention is paid to the plight and welfare of workers.
As the world commemorates 2019 Workers' Day, Nigerian workers are showering encomiums on President Muhammadu Buhari for signing the minimum wage bill into law. The Nigerian Labour Congress is also using the opportunity to call on the federal and state governments to provide amenities that would make life better for citizens as they ensure the implementation of the 30,000 naira minimum wage.
All right, we're still waiting to see how the framework, the implementation framework will look like.
Yes.
So that local governments and state governments and the private sector will all be, it will reflect.
On the same page when it comes to
will
implementation.
reflect how these things are going to pan out.
We'll see how it will work out. I'm sure the NLC is prepared for
No, I think so.
a showdown.
All right, joining me to discuss this is a development consultant, Vivian Annie. Vivian, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Really nice
Hi.
to see you, I must say.
Always nice to
Okay,
see you.
minimum wage. We've talked about this. It's been on the course for debate for so many months now. Now it is here. What concerns do you have when you look at the clamor for minimum wage, the politics of it, and the implementation of it, and at the end of the day, how well off the worker is?
My concerns is that, number one, we know that for present-day Nigeria, 30,000 naira is not going to go far. And considering the amount of time it took for us to get here, when I say get here, to get to the approval of the minimum wage. And then now, in Nigeria, when you approve is one thing and implementation is another thing entirely. It took us so many years, meaning the money is not going to do much now that it's finally here. And we know that inflation is at almost 12%, almost not quite 12% yet, meaning even that money in the next 1 year is going to be worth 12% less, give or take, rough and dirty figures. So it's worrisome. The plight of the Nigerian worker is not going to improve significantly because of this minimum wage. Time has eroded whatever gains they would have had.
All right, there's so much talk about the issue of welfare of workers and not so much talk about the value of work that they're putting into it. That's talking about productivity. A lot of people have called for the beaming of searchlight or the focus on productivity.
Precisely, because I tell workers, I say, look, if a company hires you and they know that you're going to make 100 million naira, just to use figures here for them, they don't mind sharing that 100 million and paying 50 million. That's the truth. So, but if a company hires you and they know that to even get you to understand the skill sets that you need to do the work effectively will be a problem. Number one, you don't have the skill sets to bring you up to that level where you can acquire it would be a problem. The company now just has a serious problem even paying you the smallest amount of money because it's plus and minus. The figures have to work.
When it comes to talking about this minimum wage and welfare of workers, now on the papers today we were reviewing the population increase and there's this headline that talks about the fact that the more Nigerians are going to fall below the poverty line, and the projections are that Nigeria is already hitting the 200 million mark. What concerns do you have from that window? Population increase and then the issue of minimum wage and welfare of workers.
The employment issues are going to grow in the years ahead. It's going to get worse, a lot worse, because even the Nigerian worker has not realized certain things. They've not realized that even globally, this whole guaranteed work for life thing has changed, even globally. In Nigeria, it has definitely changed. Companies themselves are not lasting for as long as they used to last before. So that for you to think that you enter the company as a young man and then you leave the company as an old man and have a lovely pension to rely on, those days are gone and they're never coming back. And now what population increase does at the rate at which Nigeria is growing, Nigeria's population is growing at almost 3% per annum.
Yes.
And these are exponential figures, meaning you're looking at the last base. It means that every year millions and millions of people are going to come into workforce and there are just not enough jobs for them. And even when the jobs are available, the jobs are not going to last for as long as they used to last before. So it's a question of skill sets, it's a question of population growth, it's a question of the Nigerian worker also rethinking the way they think about jobs.
When it comes to the science and technology, we've been talking about the AI, the artificial intelligence across the world now. Although Nigeria hasn't, come to terms with the with the adoption of AIs. But how much of that is going to threaten workers going forward?
Oh, globally it's going to threaten workers a lot. Let me tell you, certain things are driving the adoption of AI. Number one, look at it, Nigeria's population might be growing, but in a lot of developed countries, it is shrinking or just remaining at that level. In China that was the poster nation for population, they're having a real problem because people are getting too old and not enough children are being born to replace them. Now, going back to the issue of AI, Nigeria, because we have a population that's growing and the cost of labor relatively compared to global cost is still cheap in Nigeria, it will not be wise to encourage AI per se in Nigeria, and I'm saying this very carefully. However, the reality of it is that the challenges or the fallout of AI adoption in other countries is going to hit us directly or indirectly.
It's a global village,
It's a global thing. So the whole thing about AI, it will not help Nigeria because already we're crying that there are not enough jobs. However, we're part of a global village and we will not be able to escape the impact of AI.
So the earlier we start planning, the
we have
better.
to plan, yes.
All right. Thank you, Vivian, for talking to us right now.
Mike.
Thank you so much.
Always.
You're watching TVC Breakfast. It is Workers' Day today. May Day celebration characterizes the struggles of workers around the world. And on this day, special attention is paid to the plight and welfare of workers.
As the world commemorates 2019 Workers' Day, Nigerian workers are showering encomiums on President Muhammadu Buhari for signing the minimum wage bill into law. The Nigerian Labour Congress is also using the opportunity to call on the federal and state governments to provide amenities that would make life better for citizens as they ensure the implementation of the 30,000 naira minimum wage. Well, implementation has always been the major issue, whatever it is.
Some states have indicated interest to say, we will go ahead, whatever
is a state that has paid the 30,000 naira minimum
But
wage.
others are saying, well, we still have challenges with payment. And I know they're going to run, there's going to be some friction with the labor union.
Definitely. Well, joining me now to discuss this is a development consultant, Vivian Ani. Thank you for joining us, Vivian.
Hi, how are you?
Now, implementation is a major issue when it comes to whatever the act, bill that is, passed into law is. There's always a challenge with implementation, and now some state governments have said that 30,000 naira we can't pay, and some states, the 18,000 naira, some states couldn't pay. And some states have already started paying the 30,000 naira minimum wage. Now we are looking at the issue of welfare. How much of a challenge, or what are you seeing a showdown by the NLC when it comes to implementation? Because the NLC is already blowing hot when it comes to this issue now. All right.
The truth of it is that all states are not equally financially strong. You can't compare Lagos State to maybe a state that has very low level of internally generated revenue. Because don't forget how the states are funded. The states are funded by the federal government, and they're also funded by the revenue that they generate internally. I have always had a problem with the fact that all states are expected to pay the same wage. Because let's be honest, the cost of living is not the same in every state.
So should states come up with the amount they can pay?
Oh yes, possibly. I know this is what I'm saying might sound weird in view of what we're used to. But when you look at collective bargaining for the same wage, minimum wage across states, it's based on a very faulty foundation. Number one, not all states have the same economic or financial power, number one. Number two, the cost of living is not the same in every state.
But there is no state in this country that is not blessed with one resource or the other.
Now you're going into territory that goes beyond probably this discussion, because you're not going to a territory of how is the money apportioned. Yes, states are blessed, but how do they go about it? Is it, don't forget
that's
that
revenue sharing.
Revenue sharing. Don't forget that a lot of the states you're talking about being blessed. Yes, there's agriculture. Yes, there's mineral resource. Yes, there's oil. But in some of those cases, all the monies go first to the federal government. And don't forget that income taxes too on industries go to the federal government. What the state enjoys is payroll taxes. So we could go on and on. But the bottom line is that not all states are on the same financial footing.
But the government is insisting that these states have to come up with one way or the other to ensure that they pay the salaries, because they have, the government itself has, you know, helped with bailouts up to the tune of 1.1 trillion naira, and also the Paris refund has also come as, it has also sorted the governments with all of this. So what other ways then, if all of this, the issue of revenue sharing formula is still some sort of a bottleneck, which other ways can the state governments look into?
You know, between me and you, we really don't, some of those states, we don't understand what they're doing with monies. For the simple reason that accounts are not published, so in a lot of cases, so we don't know where the monies are going to. However, let us even look at the reasons that they're given. Some of them are saying that they inherited legacy debts from previous governments. You know, some of them are owing so much that out of the money that the federal government gives them, very little actually comes to them after the banks have taken their own share. So if you look at all those issues, genuinely, some states will have a big problem paying this wage, and in some cases, some states will not have a problem. But like I said, should minimum wage be the same across Nigeria? I doubt it, because if you take 30,000 naira to maybe a state like, I'm trying to give an example, a state that doesn't have, to maybe a state like Ekiti, all right, it's going to take you a lot longer than 30,000 naira will take you in Lagos.
So the government should be considering not having an cross-board minimum wage. That's what you're saying.
In NLC and the government should sit down and realistically say to themselves, number one, sit with the state governors and let's just understand what's going on financially and the cost of living in those states.
Vivian Ani, thank you for your time on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you.